So it looks like, all right, everyone. Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you and welcome. I will be your host for this evening. My name is Toltu Tufa, and I'd like to begin, I'd like to begin with the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful. Often people start with blessings when they begin their evening. I like to start with one of the many attributes that Muslims believe that God puts to himself. And I think today a good one might be to begin with Al-Fattah, the opener. So I'm hopeful that today will be a conversation of many openings and insights in ways that can improve our lives and commemorate why we're meeting here today. Thanks to Zoom. I have no idea where everyone is. I do, however, acknowledge myself that even though we're on different lands, that I'm on Wurundjeri land, and I'd like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri people as custodians on the land which I'm on at the moment, and I stand in solidarity with their elders, past and present. I also recognize the diversity in their language and culture and acknowledge that their sovereignty in Australia has never been ceded. And so with that note, I would like to welcome everyone and to wish you a happy International Women's Day for 2022. In an era that we've just come out of COVID-19 with so much that's happening around in the world, the theme for this year is gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. So what that means, we'll find out from our guest speakers today. What I encourage everyone to do is just a bit of housekeeping before we get started. There is a chat function that's available on the side. So if you can imagine, as accomplished as our guests are, at the end of the day, they're still human beings wondering if they're speaking to a crowd of names or if they're actually getting through to all of you. So if you have any comments you'd like to make, I'm sure they're reading and looking at them. So feel free to encourage. It is the equivalent of clapping. So if you want to just say, welcome, hi, good to hear from, there we go. Rachel's kicked off. Thank you so much. So if we can hear just a bit from all of you, that would be fantastic, particularly when we introduce our guests and also during their presentations. If you do have any questions, I will likely take them on board and we can direct them. If the speakers of their own accord decide to just answer that question quickly, that'd be fantastic. And in the meantime, it looks like, oh, I can't even keep up. Everyone's just saying welcome, welcome. So thank you very much, everyone. Oh, we've got people from England, we've got people from Sydney. Someone says that I'm glowing with a name like Noor. I think it's very ironic, but thank you. Thank you for that. Let's get started. We have a jam-packed program for today. Our first speaker is currently stuck in traffic, so we will progress to our next speaker. One of our speakers today, there are three, and so one of them will be attending with us shortly. So let's begin, first of all, with our speaker, who was driven to where she is today by becoming a role model to her two sons. So as soon as she raised them old enough to get into primary school, she discovered her passion, her fascination with technology to the point that she decided to go back to school. With the support of her family, a new career was born for her because as soon as she finished her degree, she found herself working in air traffic management. She excelled across technical management leadership and currently represents the Airservices initiative called Future Through Collaboration. As a decorated leader, she engages in formal cross-defense industry mentoring program for female engineers and project managers. In a male-dominated field, she stands as a role model towards redefining stereotypes as a Muslim, as a female leader, as someone of non-English speaking background who still has the time not only to raise her sons, but to take on leadership roles in the community. In fact, she was acknowledged in 2019's Women Acknowledging Women's STEM Achievement Award. Please make welcome our first speaker for this evening, Chahida Bakkour, the head of Airspace platform. Our next speaker that we have today commands attention really for her tireless work in the Academia of Islamic Studies. As a lecturer and a course director at Charles Sturt University, she holds multiple accolades, including being the president of the Australian Association of Islamic and Muslim Studies, the managing editor for the Australian Journal of Islamic Studies, the co-founder of ISRA Academy, and she has also recently published a book titled Attaining Inner Peace in Islam, which I think is probably very timely given that we're in this whole COVID era and we're looking for that inner peace, so to speak. Although you think, with all having said all of that, she hangs out at the library, she does not. You'll more likely find her navigating home life with her 3 cats, partnering with her husband to support her 2 children who are trying their hand at adulting at the moment, or checking out the latest cafes. Please make welcome Dr. Zuleyha Keskin. Okay, so welcome to our special guests. Thank you so much for attending. We have another speaker, and I'm going to save her bio until she arrives.
She's just arrived, actually. So Hel, if you can,
All right.
just arrived. Sorry,
Lovely. I've just seen her log in. So our next speaker, who's just turned up on impeccable timing, could not have planned it better. Our next speaker is an academic, an author, and a social commentator. She is a decorated researcher, and she bridges gaps between academia and the mainstream. Often you'll find her either hosting podcasts, television shows, or being sought after for her expert commentary regarding her research on platforms, ranging from the UN in Geneva to the Australian Vogue and the Quarterly Essay. It just depends on what you're into, really. She has also received acclaim for her first published book called Fighting Islam: Women, Faith and Sexism, currently sitting on my bookshelf right now. And one will not usually guess when you look at her at first glance, but she's also a certified scuba diver. Please make welcome Dr. Susan Carland.
Thank you. I apologize, I'm late. I was a victim of the Monash Freeway.
We were just saying it was a woman in 2022 managing many hats. It's only appropriate that you got stuck in traffic, Susan. Welcome. All right, so we'll kick off pretty quickly and get straight into it. I'm one to ask questions that go straight to the heart of issues. So we might kick off, being a Muslim-based event. I guess I'm curious to know, maybe some people might be, what is the significance of commemorating something like International Women's Day in 2022, when some people might suggest that we already have an Islamic culture that has, heaven lying under the feet of mothers, and women have already been given their rights 1400 years ago. What's the significance of commemorating this day on an international platform in 2022?
I can start if you like.
Yeah.
It's actually something I've been thinking about, Toltu. Maybe that's why I thought I'd just jump in. And something I actually posted about today. It is, we do celebrate, and probably if 10 years ago, if you asked me this question, I'd be like, yeah, Islam has given all these rights, they're fantastic, and do we really need International Women's Day? But what I'm seeing is that we're not necessarily putting into practice or witnessing what Islam has given to women through the Quran and Hadith, and therefore I guess we should take any opportunity, and if it means International Women's Day, we should take this day as an opportunity to celebrate women, to recognise them, and to uplift them to attain, I would say, their God-given rights, which I believe are not always the case. But it's not all about, I guess, let's claim it, but also celebrate the achievements. I think we draw a lot of strength by seeing the great women and what they've achieved. And so it gives me a lot of strength to have these kind of gatherings.
Lovely. Chahida, if the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was alive in 2022, how do you think he'd be celebrating today? And do you think he would find today particularly relevant to our craft? Do you think he'd be attending and be one of our speakers maybe?
Absolutely. He'd be supporting us the whole way. I was reading an article yesterday that was talking about the history of women in Islam in the days of the Prophet, and there were some really great role models for females doing a lot of leadership, political, getting into a whole heap of areas that today we don't even see representation as probably as much as we did in the days of the Prophet. But you know, I think he'd be
Oh, it'd be amazing.
Supporting.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Susan, yeah, please.
I think what I would say is that I see International Women's Day as a really good stock take. So I think it's great for us, for all people, but you know, when we're reflecting on this question as Muslims, I think it's a really good annual stock take for us to see how are we going Islamically with the rights that women and girls should have, and what do we need to work towards. I think if we don't have a time of regular reflection about whether we are upholding the things that we should be Islamically, it is easy for things to slide and suddenly you blink and 10 years have passed and we haven't been doing what we should be, and things have really gotten off track. So I think we can use it as a really good opportunity to assess where we are, you know, obviously globally and nationally, but also as a religious community, and see whether we are living up to the standards that our Deen requires of us when it comes to the rights of women and girls, and if not, commit to making the changes that we need to.
It's interesting you said, you know, blink. I think everything that you're saying seems to resonate with people. We can see from here people saying there's certainly a massive difference between, you know, the theory and the practice. I think Hanan is sharing that between celebrating women and affording them their high status. You said, Susan, blink 10 years might go past and, you know, things might change really quickly. In some ways, I guess all three of you are trailblazers in your communities for many, many years. Trailblazers don't happen overnight. But I guess I'm interested to know on a personal level from all three of you, what situations would you suggest, or what circumstances do you think have emerged as the biggest changes or the biggest challenges for women, say, in the last 5 to 10 years, either in your industry or within the community that you're in?
I think what I see is that the women, Muslim women are, if we're focusing on Muslim women per se, they are much more, I would say they're getting more educated, more multi-talented, and I sometimes feel as though, we're seeing them all around us. But I guess what I would like to see, I guess, is for these women to be more present in Muslim organisations, in leadership roles. I suppose there's not always a direct correlation between the skill set and what positions that they represent in these Muslim organisations. So definitely I'm observing, and that gives me a lot of hope. The youth of the Muslim youth, and particularly the Muslim women, young women, are, you know, very talented, and it gives me a lot of hope for the future, because I do feel like they're developing in ways that we will see even more fruits in 20, 30 years. So it's very hopeful, and they're taking on the challenge of the world and embracing them.
What do you guys think?
You go, Chahida.
Yeah, I think from what I can see, I think we're shifting in females actually stepping up and taking on new positions and roles that in the past they may not have, but having more of us in leadership positions and in positions where we can influence change in decisions. You know, it's great that we've got lots of female teachers. We absolutely need them, but you know, I've had examples where mothers say, "No, my daughter can't be a paramedic because that means she needs to work at night." But, you know, having that conversation and challenging that and getting them to open up about the opportunities and seeing examples like that coming through, it's really good to see. But I think the more women that can try and influence, the more we're seeing individuals, you know,
what does that look like?
Not sticking to the norms. Yeah,
that's true. You work in a very male-dominated area. Someone's just commented here that they're in an engineering job, male-dominated. They are mansplained daily. You know, are these some of the things that you're seeing among the women that you mentored for 3 years in your leadership role?
I've mentored a number of females, not just within one industry, so across, formally and informally, so within the community as well. Not necessarily. I think not necessarily what was the word they reference, mansplaining. I think a lot of it goes back to confidence. Things like imposter syndrome, having open, honest conversations about mental health. The perceptions that people perceive, and our own perceptions. Sometimes a lot of our challenges actually come from within us instead of the environment around us as well. But again, working with each other, empowering each other, supporting each other. I think I'm definitely seeing more of that.
I guess I'm thinking in terms of figuring out what's emerged as for challenges for women, maybe thinking about yourself, like what values do you think, and this is again open to everyone, Susan, today I'm interested to hear from you too, like what values do you have, or what values did you need to rely on to be able to make it through those difficulties? Because I mean, talk about them so easily, but I guess the theme for this year is we're talking about equality with a sustained sort of a sustained lens. So, and I guess one of the things that are quite sustaining, not just for women, but for men as well, is the values that we hold. So I guess I'm interested to know, what values exist for yourself that helps you to stay sustained on what looks like, with all the accolades you all have together, there's some things that are helping you to push through the difficult times. I'm wondering what those might be.
I mean, I think what I would say for myself is that, and it's tricky. I worry even saying this sounds arrogant. I don't mean it that way. And maybe that's something for us to think about as well, is a genuine belief that I deserve to be in the places that I am. And obviously I say that with, reference to, in the end, we are where Allah puts us, and it's all thanks to Him. But what I mean by that more specifically is that I do have the qualifications to be where I am, or I have been offered these opportunities by people above me who know who has the qualifications to be there. So whether that be media opportunities or whatever it is. And I try really hard to have that firm view, because my instinct is to doubt myself, imposter syndrome or whatever it is. I don't deserve to be here, or maybe they're right when they say that I'm not smart enough, or, too many domestic duties or whatever. And I sort of got to the point where I realized there is enough people outside of me who will tell me that I don't deserve to be somewhere, or tell me that I don't belong somewhere. As a woman, particularly as a Muslim woman, as a visibly Muslim woman, why would I add more barriers within myself? If I objectively have the qualifications to be somewhere, I do deserve to be here, and I'm going to feel relatively confident about that. While at the same time, I think our faith helps us to hold that quite lightly, so we can be attached to or be invested in our careers or our positions or whatever that is. And want to do our best and advance and create, a better world for others, and all of those things. But our faith helps us to also hold it lightly, so that if for whatever reason our title, our status, our job position is taken away from us, which can happen in the blink of an eye, Allah can take it like that. We get sick, we lose our job, we get fired, whatever it is, that my inherent sense of worth hasn't changed. In the end, my most important role isn't being an academic or media, whatever. My most important role is being Amatullah, a servant of God. And when you can peg your identity onto that, it actually makes it much easier to be comfortable in the roles that you're in, because you're like, well, Allah has put me here, and that is great. He could take it away in a moment, but given He has put me here, I'm going to make the most of it. And I'm going to, if nothing else, try to make it easier for the women and the Muslim women who come behind me. So I think the role of my faith actually makes it easier for me to be in these sometimes challenging or difficult situations. Allah has given me permission to be here, so I will be here until He takes that permission away.
That resonates, I think, not just with myself, but even I'm just looking at Zuleyha, I'm looking at, Chahida, and they're sort of like nodding kind of in agreement, as well as is The chat seems to resonate with it too, Susan. I invite you to read along how people are responding. What about yourselves, Zuleyha, Chahida? Sort of what values helps you to stay the path, or stay the track, or be sustained on the path of, enlightenment? I want to say is a bit of a heavy word, but on the path that you're on, that you've chosen for yourself.
Do
you want to go, Zuleyha? I'm happy for you to go.
Okay, I guess it does build on what Susan was saying. One of my, I guess, life philosophies, which is, I guess, my value, is doing things for the sake of Allah, things that will help to elevate His deen, religion, and that can look in different ways, and different forms. And for all men and women, they will contribute in a different way. And I guess what really drives me is that, I want to do something that's going to, better my community, but also something that Allah is going to be pleased with. So I'm a very process-driven person. I don't know if that's good or bad. I reflect on that quite a bit. But basically, if I see that something needs to be done, I'll just put myself out, there, and I'll try to do it without really thinking too much about it. There have been times, I guess, when someone said, "Can you do this?" And I'll be like, "Yeah, I'll do it." Okay, what do I need to do? So to me, it's like getting things done is really important. And I think at the end of the day, I think what we do, we can leave a legacy. We all can leave a legacy, and it can look different. It could be, establishing an organization, or it could be bringing up, beautiful children. It could be going into an industry where it's male dominated, and making space for, women that are to follow, or it could be all of the above. So it's really about, trying to, I guess, leave a legacy that we think Allah will be pleased with, and that to me is the driving force. And I think being a tool in the path of Allah is a real blessing. And any opportunity that arises, like Susan mentioned, if the opportunity arises, if Allah has put us in that situation, I'll go do it, because it needs to be done. And if someone else can do it better, I'm happy to let them come and do it. I wouldn't claim that role, but as long as I find myself there and there's a need, I would continue to do it. So I think that need is a drive for me as well. I hope that makes sense.
Oh, it makes sense to me. I get it. And sometimes I think, when you have one shot, you want to make sure it works. So it makes sense. You want to be process driven if you haven't got that time to faff around, because the opportunity is rarely there. So when you go in, you want to go in and, I guess, like you said, leave a legacy. So I can definitely appreciate that. Chahida, what resonates with you in terms of, your values that keep you sustained?
Yeah. I think, wearing all these hats we talk about can be extremely challenging, but it's getting to those points where the taking the challenges as, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has written for us. So, regardless of what the situation is or how challenging it is, that you actually take that as an opportunity, and you actually work with it and turn it around, and just, yeah, it's a little bit different to Susan and Zuleyha, but with my challenges, it has to be that mindset. I find that I'm continuously challenging my own mind to keep going, and trying to align that with it's actually a opportunity. When we're in roles where we are, role models and people look up to that, it's, Susan, you touched on that, the different roles that we play. When I sit in a casual get together with someone and they refer to me as the one that works at the airport, there's another person behind this, and there's more to me than just the titles that I or the hats that I wear every single day, and staying connected to that as well.
It's interesting. because all of you, I think like at the moment, I just had a quick look, we've got about 100 participants who've come in. So welcome to those who've just joined us. It's really good to have you. We're talking about International Women's Day, looking at the theme for this year, which is gender equality today for a sustainable tomorrow. And so most of the people, I would guess, have attended once they saw, you know, the lineup of speakers. So they're thinking, oh, wow, Shahida's here, Zuleyha's here, Susan's going to be speaking. And so they've come on board. Obviously, you have very inspiring backgrounds that have led you to us today. I'm interested to know, you know, who inspires you. I'm sure there's, you know, people that you've inspired your entire life, but I guess I want to shift it a bit and ask, let's say in the last 5 to 10 years, are there any people who've sort of come up on your radar, any initiatives that you've seen, women that you've come forward who are actually doing things that have inspired you, someone who's quite seasoned and on the block for a while? Good question. I guess it's okay if you have to think about it too, because quite often they say, Susan, you're so inspiring. Zuleyha, I wish I could be like you. Chahida, you're so lucky. There's only one of you and no one else. But I'm wondering, with all the people that you come across, are there certain things that, you know, inspire you and make you feel like, yeah, I think the work that I'm doing is actually worth it. Look at this stuff and look at what's going on. Is there anything you think our listeners would be interested to know about in terms of your experiences with people?
I can jump in. I've got two people, or two sort of categories, I think. I think the first one I would say is my mum, because my mum's not Muslim, and my mum is actually, as you know, Toltu, my mum is battling terminal cancer. She doesn't have long left to live. And what's been absolutely astounding for me to watch is the grace with which she has accepted her fate. She has just so beautifully surrendered to it, I guess would be the way to put something that is scary and is lonely and is physically very painful and physically very tough. And she has just been such a bastion of grace. I don't know how else to put it. It's been really remarkable to watch. And, you know, this isn't an example of someone who's doing anything big, up in lights or, you know, important, whatever. But watching someone in the last moments of their life live out their life with such dignity and surrender is really remarkable, really remarkable. So I would definitely say my mum. And the other, this is more of a group of people. I'm doing some research at the moment. I actually spoke to Zuleyha for this research, interviewed a big bunch of Muslim women, Sunni, Shia, Ahmadiyya women all across Australia, these women who are actively involved in trying to build social cohesion and counter Islamophobia. And I spoke to these women, and what stood out to me was just the tireless way these Muslim women have committed to this work of trying to be this servant of God and trying to make this country a more peaceful, cohesive place. And even when they would tell me these terrible things that non-Muslims have sometimes said to them in their work, like really some shocking things that have been said, they still just kept turning up day after day, many of them as volunteers, because they saw the value in this work. And I think what stood out to me was that these women were able to sustain what is often very difficult and incredibly draining, at times quite spiritually corrosive work, but they were able to keep doing it because it actually wasn't about the other people. It wasn't about the non-Muslims. It wasn't about trying to appease them or convince them or reassure them of anything. It was actually an affirmation of who they are. This was an affirmation of what their values were and the God they worshipped and what it meant to be a Muslim. And so they were able to keep going out and doing this really difficult work. And it really made me look at myself and go, what am I doing and why am I doing that and what is my motivation? So those two sort of groups of people, I think, are the women that have really stood out to me in the last few years.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Susan, and about your mum as well. you know, everyone always sees their mum as like the adult, the one who knows everything. And, you know, when the tables change and all of a sudden you're the adult, so to speak, and they're the ones who rely on you for help, I think it taps into a whole reservoir of, you know, strength that you need. So thank you so much for sharing that with us. And I really, really wish your mum well.
Thank you.
And peace. Tell us some more inspirational stories. I mean, we've started. Where can we take this, ladies?
I would say similar things to Susan in that the community generally does. When I see the effort and the sincerity of our community, it really does inspire me, and it does help me to continue. And I kind of get things from different people. So with some individuals, it's hard for me to name people. Obviously, my mum's a big inspiration, and she's visiting here from overseas for 3 months. So I'm trying to make the most of the time with her before she goes overseas. I hadn't seen her for 5 years before that. I do try to identify certain things with certain individuals. So for someone, it might be their humility. For someone else, it might be their sincerity. For another, it could be their outspokenness. So I think that's really important too, how if we can identify, you know, we can identify different things in different people and let that be the inspiration from that person. Although I know, Toltu, you said in the last 5 to 10 years, and it might sound cliche, but you know, Aisha, the wife of our prophet, really comes to my mind. Maybe because she, you know, I'm in academia, and her nickname was Scholar of Scholars. Maybe I feel like there's, you know, I can relate to her more in that sense. But it just amazes me how much she had pioneered in the space of knowledge, especially when you consider the context that she lived in. And it was evolving, but these changes take time. You know, to be of such a level of scholarship where she was basically one of the contributors to the foundation of Islam, Islamic jurisprudence, Islamic exegesis, Quranic exegesis. Like, to me, that's inspiring. And I feel like we need to bring that back and have women's scholarship contributing as we once did 1400 years ago. And that inspires me, I suppose.
Yeah, so you're not talking about something new, you're talking about a revival, I guess, a renewal of sorts, going back. Thank you. Is there any story that you wanted to share, Chahida, any story that sort of resonates with you, that's or somebody or something or a situation that you might like to share?
I don't think there's anything specific. I know your examples are very academic and things like that, but I think what's inspiring is seeing the number of support groups we've got and circles within our communities where we're actually uplifting each other and there to support each other. There's a lot of examples. I wouldn't be able to give just one, but I know, yeah, there's so many examples of, you know, you don't need to be a head of a platform or have a PhD and everything, but it's the silent ones. It's the ones where you don't actually know the stories and the challenges they've got. It's the mothers that have gone back to university to get a law degree while you know, juggling 2 little children, and the examples we've got in this on this panel, we're all juggling so much. It's more than just what's visible that you can see at the moment.
I definitely, and I think just that last sentence you said, just the idea of juggling, that's been a theme time. So we've got people saying, how do you manage it all? You know, I mean, the most recent now, I'm not even to try and pronounce it. When you feel like you need to be 2 people, like one at home and one at work, how do you navigate that? And even a bit, you know, further above, there's people saying, like, how do you just juggle all of that? How do you do the, you know, the wife, the mother, the daughter, the professional, the academic, the trailblazer? Like, how do you balance it all? I mean, I know, Susan, you get stuck in traffic sometimes, but like otherwise, how do you do it? Is it different to juggling roles whether you are Muslim or non-Muslim?
I don't know. In terms of like feeling you need to be everything to all people, I feel like that feels like a very universal female thing, I think. I don't know, maybe the men will say they feel it too, and you know, that would be a really interesting conversation. I can only speak as a woman. I feel like it's just my default feeling now, probably until the day that I die, that I'm letting someone down somewhere. I have, you know, literally about 14,000 unopened emails. I can see 129 unopened texts. Like I'm so conscious of the people that I need to get back to, that I haven't, that, you know, when I'm here with you, well, my kids aren't getting dinner at the moment. When I'm with my kids, work's not happening. What about my mom? I should be visiting her, my mother-in-law. I need to see her, my dad. You know, what about my friends? When did I last see them? Who knows? Are they still okay? I wouldn't even know. You know, I feel like there is this constant feeling of never being on top of things, that you've just always got plates spinning in the air and one crashes, then you have to try to pick it up, put it back together and keep spinning. And maybe that's just it. That's what it is. I don't know if there is a perfect work-life balance or anything like that. I think some things will become more important at certain times and other things will recede, and you sort of do the best that you can. I think the thing that gives me the most comfort is there's that beautiful hadith about the time that Fatima asked the Prophet Muhammad to give her a slave because she was just so exhausted. And he said, I can't give you a servant, but I'll teach you this dhikr instead. This will be better for you. And I always think of that dhikr as the exhausted mother's dhikr. That's the one that I feel like is for us. It's the one that is for the woman who's like, I can't do it all, I need help. And the Prophet said, don't have another person, give it back to Allah. And maybe that's all we can do, is accept that we're not always going to be able to be everything to all people at all times. It's just not physically possible. But if you just keep turning back to Allah, rely on Him, ask Him to carry the load when you can't, maybe that's that best that any of us can do.
Thank you, Susan. So literally, as you told the story of Fatima radiallahu anha, someone was, I think it was Aisha Tan. Can you share any habits or hacks to find that give barakah in your time? And literally you were like, yep, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar, 33 times.
That's it.
Thanks, Susan. What about everyone else? What are your thoughts?
My favorite topic. It's a constant challenge, and I think it's something that changes. The way I manage things today completely different to what they were 12 months ago, 24 months ago. I had to learn very quickly on in my career to ask for help. As females, we're not very good, not all of us, but the majority of us don't actually ask for help, and we expect people and others to help and understand, but sometimes it takes us actually explaining that, you know, I can't visit my mum every single day. Sometimes I can't visit her every week. You know, you can't juggle it all. You'll get to points where you actually have to make a call to drop something. 12 months ago, I had to pull myself off a committee of management because it got to a point with COVID and everything else, and the guilt, but even the guilt of dropping something felt like a burden on my shoulders for a long time. But you have to make those calls, and you know, you can't pour from an empty cup or jug. You have to take care of yourself. You have to make sure that you do spend time, or you know, create opportunities for yourself to actually recharge as well. So yeah.
So can I just follow from that, Chahida, because there are some other comments coming through. So like, how do you deal with obstacles set by your own when a Muslim woman wants to move forward and reach her maximum potential? I mean, this could be in the workplace or at home too, but it's sort of that struggle of, you know, how do I balance, you know, wanting to do all of these things? Sure, there's like the time factor, but then there's also the people factor, you know, like, you know, when you deal, how do you manage those obstacles?
From a people perspective or expectations of others?
Yeah.
I think that's where you need to make some calls. So setting some things straight. If, you know, I can't come to this event, you know, it starts with me not feeling guilty that I have to, and communicating that. You get to a point where some people will respect that and understand it, and some others won't. So I don't know if that answers your question, but you get to a point where you have to make a call, and sometimes it's really hard for us to put ourselves first, but we really need to. We can't keep going and moving forward if we don't make time to, do yoga in the morning, or go to the gym, or go for a walk, or step away. And you can't perfect it. I'm not perfect at that, but it's a continual step towards trying to better it. There's no quick fix.
Yeah, absolutely. Someone was saying boundaries, but like, it's so easy to say that. I guess, knowing it and doing it are two different things. And it's something that takes time to, I guess, perfect, so to speak. Yeah, thank you. Susan, I've never met a plate spinning woman that was ever smiling, ever, never. They're always so serious. So I think, the idea of women always trying to do things is like the eternal challenge, and we just try and come up with different ways, of managing and navigating that. I guess I wanted to ask something, I guess, in terms of, we're coming almost towards the end, and so I do see some questions here and some comments, and we're trying to incorporate them. I guess I wanted to kind of ask my final question to you as a group is, we're 2022 International Women's Day, and inshallah, you may be invited to come back to speak at 2032 or 2042 International Women's Day. What do you hope we would be celebrating or commemorating then? And what do you think we might need to do to get the ball rolling now?
That's a great question. I'll jump in. This is just, I'm talking as I'm thinking. So these may not be very well formed views, and I reserve the right to say in a few minutes, actually, I disagree with what I just said. And I want to say
all right, we won't call you, even though this is recorded, the caveat's been said. What are we going to be commemorating? Where are we going to be at? What do we need to do now?
Again, I'm thinking of this particularly with the Muslim community, that's where my particular interest lies.
Mm-hmm.
And I would love it if we had a real cluster of Australian female scholars, that we had female scholars on ANIC and Board of Imams and all those other things contributing as female scholars, legitimate, recognized female scholars that were there to add their voices and expertise, as we used to have traditionally, that was the case, that they could be there, yes, to support things with stereotypical women's issues, but also beyond that, to provide their guidance on moon sighting or insurance matters or inheritance matters or divorce or any of those other things. I would love it if we were at that stage where we were returning to our religious roots and creating an organic Australian female scholarship that was contributing really richly and beautifully to our community and leading and guiding alongside the male religious leaders that we have here. I think that would be wonderful. And I think we have the potential to do that.
Well, I feel like, Zuleyha, you're kind of starting that tradition within your tradition of like your position as lecturer, your position within Charles Sturt University at the moment as a lecturer. What are your hopes and dreams for the next 10 or 20 years' time, especially given that you're process-driven? I feel like you may have mapped this out already.
What's interesting, I'm process-driven, but I'm not very goal-driven. That's something else I've worked out about myself. So I would say ditto and second everything that Susan said. But I feel at this point, I will probably surprise you and say what I would like to see in 20 to 30 years is women who are comfortable in their own skin. So it's a completely different take to what you've asked. But I just, listening to Susan, listening to Chahida and about the challenges and looking at the comments, I just feel that we put so much pressure on ourselves that I would like us to be more at peace. Maybe it's because of my book. I would like to see us more at peace with ourselves, with what we've achieved and what we haven't achieved. And I think when we're at that sort of state, we will get the best out of ourselves as women and men. So I really would want us to be more comfortable with ourselves, more at peace and comfortable in our skin.
Fantastic. Definitely a different perspective to the whole leaning in. It almost sounds like you need to lean out a little bit and just take it easy.
Absolutely. Oh, it's all about balance, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very elusive though, I have to say. It's like one of those things where they say you need to exercise and eat well, and everyone knows it, but how to do it seems to be, maybe that's what we need to get started on to get there in, you know, the next 10 years, inshallah. Chahida, what are your aspirations? What are you hoping for?
I was thinking about what I was going to say, and it aligns with a question or a comment that Tasnim actually wrote to everyone. And she says some family and friends and family within the Muslim community discourage women to grow, to explore, to learn, and to venture. Like to see an end to that, where we actually encourage and help females and you know, anyone that wants to grow and develop and explore, where that's not a barrier because of our own family and traditions and other excuses. You know, we need to be able to trust and support young females if they do want to explore new careers, or, you know, I'd love to see more people in IT and engineering, you know, but, you know, I could give you lots of examples, but
please do. We've got time. Like, that's why
you know, we've had people go into and join an engineering degree, and they didn't even know what coding was. You know, I've spoken to teachers at some of the schools, I won't mention which ones, but you almost need a case for them to introduce an IT or an engineering topic to females.
Wow.
Why? Yeah. So I'd like to see us encouraging, you know, more females to take on different paths.
And so where do you think that should be? Zuleyha, please, you look like you wanted to say something.
I just want to say, I've had something, it's very interesting, like when we have ISRA events, usually women the number-wise is more women than men. There's one event or one program where the men outnumbered the women, and it was called the Scholar Development Program. So it kind of goes back to what Susan said. Shahida said, it's very interesting, like, why aren't women signing up to become scholars? And men are. There seems to be so many limitations, and I feel that we just do need to encourage women, whether to go into these like engineering type roles or to high scholarship levels. There are clearly a number of obstacles that are preventing them from doing it. I just thought of those stats as you were speaking.
I guess also something that resonates with me, and like no one's really said it out loud, but I've been thinking, you know, is there a difference, or I would say a relationship? Is there a difference, I guess, between men and women in terms of what they're striving for? Like, I get the impression that a lot of what you've all been working towards is some kind of influence. And I'm wondering if perhaps, and I'm stereotyping here, maybe that men are looking for power or control, and women also aspire to those roles, not so much to control, but to be able to influence and, you know, make those changes.
Definitely, I think there is that, whether it's due to societal pressures or societal norms, or whether it's because of our nature. Nature and nurture. I don't know which one dominates, but I definitely do see that generally women are more about making a difference, leaving a legacy, nurturing, whereas men, you know, generally speaking, we're generalizing, would be going for roles that are more power driven. And that creates challenges for women, because to really excel and realize your potential, you do need to go into leadership positions. So a lot of the times you might be going against the societal norms. Also, imagine a female saying, I want to be on the management committee of a mosque. People might think, well, she's power driven, but she may actually want to make a change. She may want to be influential. That's why she wants to do it. So there's definitely, you know, I think we are influenced by society, and we see this, we don't even realize that we are being influenced in this way, and it can influence our decisions and our feelings, our emotions. And that's where I saw a number of people asking about children, like how do you raise children, motherhood, with juggling that with other roles. you know, I do think women do feel more guilty about not paying enough attention to their children than fathers do. Whereas, yes, they both have responsibilities. You can, you know, there could be some discussions about who has to take more responsibility, but that guilt always comes into it, and, you know, societal pressures can play a role. And this is where, can I just also add that the men need to play a supportive role as well? Because that was another comment I saw, you know, do you have supportive people in your life? For me, if my husband wasn't supportive, if he didn't babysit the kids, they're much older now, but when they were younger, if he didn't babysit them while I went to meetings or I went to conferences, I probably wouldn't have been able to do what I do now, because it does take what they say, tribe to bring up a child, or something along those lines. And so if you have a supportive husband or mother, or, you know, parents, in-laws, it makes a huge difference. So there's so many factors at play, I guess, Toltu.
Absolutely. And there's so many questions that are coming up here on comments as well. Some of them I wish we could go into, but ladies, it seems like there's quite a few women here. There's only like 6 minutes to go, and I'm always very conscious of time. I'm not one to keep people even a minute over. So I really want to acknowledge that we'd love to be able to answer some of these questions, but it might be a bit tricky under the circumstance. This might mean that we need to have a part 2, or maybe we'll hold off until 2023 to continue this conversation and find out, you know, what's changed for us, or, you know, what hasn't. So I think, I guess as a final note, I guess what I wanted to, I guess, give you all an opportunity is to share any final words or any messages. There are so many women here. Some of them are struggling. Some of them are soaring. Some of them are exhausted, and like everything in between. Is there anything you'd like to share with the women and men? There are men here too. It's not just women, guys. This is super duper exciting. I'm not going to embarrass them all by reading out their names. What messages do you have for our guests and our audience who are here today? Final thoughts.
I'm happy to go first. Just be kind to yourself. Whatever you choose, whatever your struggles are, just be kind to yourself. Everyone's giving their best shot at it. But you can, I mean, you've got some really good examples here of bringing up children while studying, while working. You know, it can be done, and you don't have to feel guilty about it either.
My son just came in and was asking for more cookies, and I said, go away. And then he just walked away, like, really quietly. Trying to resonate here with your messaging.
Juggle.
Thank you. Susan Zuleyha.
Zuleyha, please.
Okay. What advice? I was actually, when you said, I was thinking be gentle to yourself. But I will further add to it, I guess. I think one of my mottos in life is that I'm going to die trying. It sounds, I don't know, it needs a bit of explanation, I suppose. I think just putting effort and trying and to achieve what you want to achieve is what matters at the end of the day. And there is a hadith, actions will be judged according to intentions. So if your intention is to better the community, if your intention is to have Muslim women heard more, if your intention is for the Muslim community to be more united through the work that you're doing, then hopefully you will get the reward for it. So I think we have to realize that, we have a certain circle of influence, each one of us. And for some of us, it might appear bigger than others, but that's all, it's all about perspective, really. And we do some positions, like if I'm in a leadership position, if I'm the president or something, it's like, oh, you've got a lot of power. But sometimes it doesn't work that way. If whatever our circle of influence is, if it's our children and our family and our parents, and we're able to give to them and leave our legacy through them, that in itself is a huge achievement. But for others, we might be blessed and we might be able to do, we may not have children, but then we'll do it through other blessings. So don't compare yourself to other people and work on your circle of influence.
Fantastic.
I think what I would say, it's difficult to have words of wisdom to such a diverse group of 100 men and women at very different stages. just general words of advice. I don't know, clean your car would probably be the piece of advice I need to be given. Would be, the first thing would be, you know, in the vein of International Women's Day, and being Muslim, is that, you know, I've seen some of the comments in the chat have been, you know, what about when people want to stop us, or Islamically we're told this or that? The piece of advice I would give you there is find out for yourself what your dean teaches you about what women are allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do, because often we are told things that are not in fact correct about the things that women are not allowed to do or shouldn't do, or it's better if we don't. And in fact, there's no basis in that, or it's very cultural, or there's a very valid difference of opinion. So don't be satisfied with someone putting you in a very limiting box as a woman or as a girl and tell you this is what it means to be a Muslim woman, that there's this singular tiny definition. And the other thing I would say is that, you know, in all the struggle and trying to juggle and all these other things, and am I doing the right thing? I don't know. I would say, number one, use your faith as a cloak that envelops you and keeps you safe and nurtured. You know, when you want to feel nurtured, go back to that. When all the noise and the drama and the chatter about gender and rights and society's nuts and silos and everyone's in their echo chamber, whatever, go back to that quiet, comforting place of your faith, and that will sustain you. And lastly, no matter what we do, publicly, privately, in the home with our kids, on a public stage, you know, impressive job, behind the scenes, whatever, we have an audience of one. That's the audience we're talking to. That's who we're doing it for, and that's Allah. And if we can feel comfortable that the work we're doing in whatever realm is pleasing to that audience of one, everything else, I feel, will take care of itself.
Sounds like we need to pivot our radar.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Thank you so much, Susan. I genuinely thought you were going to say audience, like one thing we need to do. I thought you were going to say clean our cars, but I guess you were.
I need to clean my car. That's another thing I haven't done. Everyone feel better about yourselves. My car's a pigsty.
Look, thank you so much, all three of you. Everyone, please, you know, pop in a comment there to show some support to our fantastic guest speakers today. Thank you to Chahida. Thank you so much, Chahida Bakkour. Thank you, Dr. Zuleyha Keskin. Thank you, Dr. Susan Carland. Everyone, I've been your host. I've been so excited and happy to do that. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Toltu Tufa, and have a wonderful night. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Thank you, everyone. Thanks, ladies.
Thanks.